What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 143. We're back to recap the semifinals of the college football playoff. Got our national championship game set with Notre Dame and Ohio State. Had really two entertaining semifinal games, and in my opinion, had a good one on Thursday night uh, with Notre Dame beating Penn State 27-24 in a pretty wild fourth quarter. And then Friday night had a really uh, good game with Ohio State and Texas. Um, Ohio State kind of took command early. Texas did a good job of really hanging in the ball game, and obviously a play that Ohio State fans are going to remember a long time with Jack Sawyer's strip six, as they call it, and ice in the game against the Longhorns. But got to get your thoughts on the Notre Dame Penn State game, kind of what you saw from that, and kind of what you think about Notre Dame going into this championship game.
I thought it was the most exciting game and the best game we've gotten so far of the college football playoff from start to finish for sure. I mean, it was a nail biter from start to finish. It was a slugfest, really. Neither team could really get it going offensively early on. Penn State finally found a groove with their running backs, both of them Singletary, and I cannot, the other name's slipping me right now, but they were both carrying the ball extremely well, and Drew Allen was making plays when needed. Used his feet a little bit, but was throwing the ball pretty well, and it utilized their tight end. I mean, he's a cheat code. He declared for the draft. His name's also slipping me. Help me out. Number 44.
Oh yes, Tyler Warren.
Warren, yes.
Yeah,
He just declared for the NFL draft. So Penn State's offense is going to look different next year. They're still going to be good. A lot of the guys are coming back, but losing him is going to make that offense look a lot different because, I mean, he was just like their get out of jail free card. Something was going wrong, get it in his hands, and something good's going to happen. So hats off to that man. Um, he got a lot of hate for winning the tight end of the year award. Because there was a guy that led in stats and everything. But I think that he definitely deserved it and proved it on the big stage. He is the best player on the field offensively for Penn State every game he played this year. So he's going to have a good NFL career for sure if he can stay healthy. I wish him nothing but the best, but he had a damn good game. And then eventually in the second half or the later part of the second quarter and then in the second half, Penn State's offense kind of sputtered out. Notre Dame was able to create pressure on Drew Aller and really blow up some plays, and they were able to stop the run and keep it. They just didn't allow the run to beat them. They didn't really allow a big explosive run. They just kept them in front, forced them out of bounds, stuff along those lines. So I think they adjusted really well. They were still dealing with some injuries, both offensively and defensively, but I think they played extremely well, especially after they fell down 10-0. They responded. They were able to keep Penn State out of the end zone. Penn State dropped a touchdown, pretty much was going to be a touchdown right there in the first quarter when they had to settle for a field goal. They running back, I believe it was Singletary or Singleton, however you say his last name, Singleton, ran a little flat route and he dropped it wide open for a touchdown and ended up forcing a field goal. But I mean, other than that, after those first few drives for Penn State, they really couldn't do anything else offensively. Notre Dame kind of controlled the game. You could feel the momentum swinging back. And then when Riley Leonard threw that interception, I believe it was tied. He threw the interception. Penn State drives down and scores and goes up 24-17. There was like 4 minutes to go or something along those lines. When he threw that interception, I thought, oh, that's game over. And then when Penn State punched it in, and I was like, all right, that's really game over. They just put the nail in the coffin. They get one more stop. They're going to the national championship game. And then what do you know? Notre Dame drives right back down the field. They end up answering, force another turnover. They made Drew Aller throw two interceptions. Both of them got called back on pass interference, extended the drive for them. And then to end the game, it's 24-24. Penn State's got the ball. There's a minute or so left, a minute or right under. Drew Aller gets a little pressure, throws it back across the field. Notre Dame makes an interception, ends up driving down, kicking a field goal, goes to the national championship game. I will say I like what James Franklin did with his timeouts there at the end. Um, he had two timeouts left or something like that, and they were trying to drain it down to get it down to 2 seconds to kick the field goal and walk off field goal, game's over. And they thought that he was going to bait him into it, so they wasted a timeout or something along those lines. I can't remember how it went down, but James Franklin saved his last time out until they were trying to drain it when they ran out of timeouts after the third down, or
Mm-hmm.
when it was after the third down they were trying to drain it. James Franklin called another timeout, made it 8 seconds or whatever it was, 10 seconds. They thought he was gonna use it to ice him. He instead saved time to give his team at least a chance to get it down the field. I liked that. I thought that was really really cool. But other than that, Notre Dame kind of took over in the second half and pretty much dominated.
Yeah, I mean, kind of looking at both these teams, I just feel like in the overall grand scheme of things, they're almost identical, like roster wise, like physicality wise. I mean, I think Penn State's duo of running backs and what they have at tight end, but I think they're very similar. I just think Notre Dame just has a little better quarterback play with Riley Leonard than Penn State does with Drew Aller. I mean, I knew Riley Leonard threw a couple picks in this game, but I just think like the added dimension he has with his legs. Um, like I said, I think Penn State's got better overall, like a tandem of running backs. I mean, they're really over 1,000 yards apiece from both those guys. And then Tyler Warren over 1,000 yards at tight end. Like, I just didn't think Drew Aller made enough plays to, that you can tell like they've got good physicality, they've got good backs, good tight end, but they're just not quite good. He's not quite good enough at quarterback, at least right now. So I just think to me it was two even teams, and I think the team with the better quarterback ended up squeaking it out. I think that's what you saw with Notre Dame, and just I know a lot of people like the under on this game, and we went to the fourth quarter at 10-10. So the over under was around 45. So we were at 20 going into the fourth quarter. They scored a combined 31 in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was a wild kind of back and forth a little bit there. Notre Dame ended up driving it down, getting it in field goal range, and nailed it. So, but no, I was really impressed with both these teams. Honestly, I've been impressed with Notre Dame's physicality. For a while now, especially what they did against Georgia was really impressive. But that's really hard to do against a team like Georgia. So, um, yeah, I think it's cool to see where they came from against Northern Illinois to make it all the way to the national championship game. Um, was a really impressive turnaround and a big, uh, a lot of strides they made from the beginning of the season till now. But yeah, I thought yeah, about as even of a matchup as you could possibly get in a semifinal type of game. And like I said, I think the team with the better quarterback was able to edge it out. And now, like you said, I think it was between this and the Texas Arizona State, it's definitely been the two best playoff games by far.
And I mean, even when Riley Leonard got banged up for a little bit and had to miss a little bit, their backup quarterback, that Steve Angeli guy, he played pretty well. I mean, he's 6'7", 44 yards. He played pretty well. I think that's probably their guy next year. If you, I mean, in the brightest moment of his career or the brightest moment of the season so far, he stepped in and he looked just fine. I mean, they didn't rely on him too heavy, but he was able to get the job done. And then Jeremiah Love was banged up a little bit too, but he made it happen when he needed to. Had two pretty explosive runs, one where he drugged the defenders into the end zone. So I mean, they're playing banged up, like you said. They got a lot of fight, and I agree with you. I like their makeup for sure. They're definitely physical. And they're some fighters, man. They're some dogs.
And I did want to mention before we move on to Ohio State, Texas, but Penn State is bringing back both Nick Singleton and Katron Allen next year again. Both guys had over 1,000 yards as a duo of backs. Like how impressive that is, and the fact that they were able to hang on to both of those guys when both those guys could go be feature backs at pretty much any other school in the country. Those guys came in the same class. Like they've been together throughout their entire career. To have two guys of that quality for now, what's going on 4 years next year, and to have the kind of production they've had is like extremely impressive. So, hats off to Penn State for keeping those guys on board and keeping one of the best running back tandems in the country together. But I thought that was really impressive because either one of those guys could have been like, man, I want to go, I want to be the guy that gets the bulk of the carries. Uh, but I thought that was pretty cool and unique. Like you don't see two guys of that quality kind of sharing the same backfield like that, like they have it at pretty much an even split. I was looking at their numbers. Um, so Singleton on the year, 172 carries for right at 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. And Katron Allen had 220 carries for 1,108 yards. So, I mean, it was like dang near like 55-45 split for those two guys. So, yeah, hats off to James Franklin and them for keeping those two guys on board. And that's going to be huge for their success next year. And a big reason why they'll be one of the top ranked teams in the preseason.
Absolutely. And, like you said, it was a pretty evenly match up game. So I thought it was the best one we've got so far, definitely from start to finish.
I got to get your thoughts on this Ohio State Texas game. Did it go kind of like you thought it would? Just kind of what was your overall take, kind of not only from Ohio State's perspective with them going on to the national championship, but kind of Texas in this game and kind of how you look back at their overall season?
I mean, did it go how I thought it would? Not necessarily. I did think Texas would give them a better game, but I didn't think Texas's defense would play as good of a game. I thought that it was going to be more of a shootout type game where both offenses were going to be, putting up lots of points. And the offenses didn't do terrible, but the one difference in this game, the major difference in this game on both sides was the defensive side of the ball. Ohio State, let's see how many sacks they had. They had 9 sacks, I think. 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. I was reading that backwards. And then I don't know how many sacks Texas forced, but they were not forcing as many, 2 sacks and 4 tackles for loss. It seemed like every snap that if Quinn Ewers would have held the ball just a hair longer, he was getting popped. They were on him like white on rice all night. They were in the backfield. They really couldn't. There was times where they would break a run here and there, but they couldn't really get anything going. Texas played too high safety pretty much all night defensively. Their defense played well. They got a great defensive backfield. Everybody knows that, but they played too high safety all night. Kind of didn't let Jeremiah Smith beat them. Anybody but him, they're not going to let him be the one that beat him like he has everyone else. So he had 1 catch for 3 yards. He was pretty much a no factor in this game, but that opened up a bunch of other people. Guy that a lot of people probably never heard of this season. I hadn't heard a lot of his name, but Carnell Tate. I mean, he had 7 catches. The dude went nuts. As everybody else was guarded up except for him. I mean, Ibuka obviously had a really good game as well, but they weren't going to let Jeremiah Smith be the one to beat them like he has been everyone else. So I like their plan defensively, but I didn't think that the offenses would struggle the way that they did. And then, people had things go their way. There was a late flag called on Texas for what did he call unsportsmanlike conduct because made a big play when it was tied and pointed at the defensive back, gets called back. They answered back down the field, throwing a big bomb. They get bailed out twice, like Texas does, to get put up basically on the 1 yard line on back-to-back pass interference calls. Then you run a toss sweep or a pitch or whatever you want to call it on the goal line on second down. I don't understand what was going on there in Sarkisian's mind, what he was thinking. I mean, I guess you're not going to run right through them, but 4 times in a row, I'm going to run it with my best guy, with my biggest guys in front blocking, and say, stop me if you can. I mean, 4 times in a row, I feel like my guys can get 2-3 yards. He needed 1, 2. So, I mean, I don't know what his thought process was there. I hate that Quinn Ewers' career ended that way. I'm a big Quinn Ewers fan. So I wanted him to at least go to the national championship game. But he's probably going off to the NFL. They're losing several guys offensively. A lot of their receivers have declared for the NFL. But I thought this game was not what I expected, but I thought it was pretty entertaining. The final score definitely doesn't show how close of a game it was. I mean, Ohio State had that late strip sack. That what was his name?
Jack Sawyer, yeah.
Sawyer. Yeah, he had the strip sack to close the game out, like when they should have just ran the ball to try and tie it up or whatever. But I mean,
Yeah.
there was some questionable calls for sure on both sides. But I mean, defensively, both these teams played lights out for sure.
Yeah, I think obviously the strip sack to end it because it's 4th and goal there. Texas could have tied it up to basically send it to overtime, but obviously that play is going to stick out. To me, I thought the biggest swing of momentum in the game or critical play was Texas scoring right before half, um, tying it up 7-7, and kind of the way the first half it went, and Ohio State scored early, and you're like, man, the way Ohio State's been playing, man, if Texas gets too far behind, it's going to be over. Thought their defense really battled them throwing the wheel route for the touchdown right before half,
Yeah.
but then the ensuing play with under 30 seconds before half, giving up the screen for 75 yards to Travion Henderson,
Untouched.
it just ripped every if Texas would have just held them before half and it was going 7-7, you'd have like, man, Texas got the momentum going in the locker room. Like they kind of survived that initial wave. Like, hey, this is going to be a 30-minute game now. Like you would have felt really good about Texas' chances. And then when that screen happened, he took it to the house. Um, what a burst of speed, by the way. The way he split those two defenders, like that was incredible. That burst that Travion Henderson has. But yeah, when they gave that up, man, and then you essentially went into half exactly like you were 30 seconds before. It just snatched the momentum right back from Texas and Ohio State's favor. I mean, Texas ended up tying it up in the third quarter, but I just thought that play loomed so large because like there was no excuse to let that happen on you at that point before
Yeah.
halftime. So I thought that was like probably the most critical play of the game.
Yeah, of all
Like
things, a screen, man, a screen.
yeah, crazy. I think the point you made and is probably the biggest takeaway from the game is both defenses played lights out, but the ease that Ohio State could get to Quinn Ewers was the difference in the game. Ohio State rushed 4 all night long and got home all night long. Like I mean, that was that. I mean, they did not have to bring any extra pressure. Um, and the easiness they were able to get to Quinn Ewers only rushing 4, I was extremely impressed with that. I mean, I knew they would get pressure on him. I didn't think it would be as easy as it was or as easy as they made it look. And I thought, to me, that was the difference in the game. They were able to get more pressure, even though Quinn Ewers, by all accounts, played a pretty good game, I thought,
Yeah.
especially considering the circumstances. But yeah, Ohio State overall defensively with their pass rush was just way too much.
And
Um,
I think that's why they're going to dominate in the championship game. Notre Dame does not have an answer for them up front. I really don't think they do.
Now, I don't either. I think Ohio State at their best, man. I don't know if anybody's got an answer for that defensive front. And I think that takes so much pressure. They've got a great secondary, but I just think it takes so much pressure off their secondary because they know that front's going to get home consistently, not having to blitz. Like I mean, they can get 4, they can rush 4 and get home. If you can do that, man, like you're going to be an elite defense. And that's exactly what Ohio State is. That just I think it allows that secondary, Caleb Downs and the guys that safety just to play free. They can play loose because they know those guys up front are taking care of business. And like you said, I just don't think Notre Dame's got the horses to run with this Ohio State bunch. The way they're playing, the depth and the talent they have. Um, yeah, I think Notre Dame, like I said, is going to put up a respectable fight, but I think in the end, Ohio State's just going to be way too much.
Yeah, the line is -8 is what I looked. Just saw that my app crashed. So let me go double check that. But the line
I've
right
got
now,
8 as well.
Yes, -8 is what I'm seeing. -8, over under 45.5. I'm gonna be honest. I'm probably hammering Ohio State -8. I mean, I think they win by 2 touchdowns or more. Like I said, and it's not that necessarily their offense is just so dominant. They can pretty much run the ball whenever they want to. They throw it extremely well, short yardage, mid range, deep balls. They throw it extremely well. But their defense, man, like you just got done talking about, they're able to get to the quarterback, and that's all it takes, man. I just don't think that man for man Notre Dame can line up for 4 quarters and beat them.
Yeah, I don't either, man. I just don't see Notre Dame scoring a lot on this Ohio State defense. I don't see them moving the ball consistently. Um, I think Riley Leonard, although he has some mobility, I don't think he can move quick enough for for this Ohio State defensive front coming after him. I think they're going to dominate that part of the game, which they've done so often. And yeah, like I said, I think I don't necessarily think they blow them out per se, but I could easily see Ohio State winning this handily. I mean, that's kind of my opinion hasn't really changed from the last podcast and kind of what we've seen from Ohio State in this playoff. Like they've hit their stride at the perfect time, and they definitely kind of have a chip on their shoulder a little bit, not happy exactly with how the regular season went, and some games that slipped away from them, and obviously they got their payback against Oregon, and they won't get Michigan, but I think they're gonna get they're gonna get Notre Dame here, and I think they're gonna win the national title. Uh, Fairly convincingly, I think, if they play similar to how they had this playoff.
Yep, they're going to win the first ever 14 playoff, and they're probably going to win the first ever 12-team playoff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep, I think they're well on their way to for sure. I mean, they've obviously they've got a tremendous roster. I mean, the best roster on paper in college football, and I think you've kind of seen it. It took a while for it to finally gel. But if you're ever going to gel, the first game of the playoffs is a perfect time to gel, and they've done that. And
Yeah.
they came out, took care of business, and not an easy path. I mean, they beat Tennessee, they beat Oregon, the number one seed, and then they beat a really good Texas team as well. So I mean, they've earned everything they've gotten through this 12-team playoff. It's been really dominant and really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hats off to him. Ryan Day's coaching for his job. I think he's done a pretty good job of that. I don't think there's going to be no more fire Ryan Day. Uh, I mean, hell, you think 2 years ago he was a missed field goal away from going to the national championship, and then they would have done the exact same thing to TCU that Georgia did.
Yeah.
They would have done the exact same thing to him. So they were a missed field goal away from going and winning the national championship 2 years ago, 3 years ago, however long that was. So, I mean, he's coaching for his job. They're going to be motivated for sure. I don't see anything standing in their way. It's like it's destined.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I think they get it done, and like I said, take a little pressure off Ryan Day. Certainly, maybe until the Michigan game next year.
Yeah. That week is going to be. Is he going to get fired again?
Exactly. But I did want to talk a little bit about the transfer portal, specifically the big news with Carson Beck. A lot of talk that he may go pro, obviously, and that's what a lot of people thought coming into the season. The way he played a year ago, obviously had some inconsistencies, had the injury at the end of the year. He ends up entering the transfer portal, which I don't think was a huge surprise considering what you can get in the transfer portal nowadays as a high level starting quarterback. And um, reports are saying he's now the highest paid player in college football history, transferring to Miami. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Um, just see what you thought and how you think he's going to do down there next year with the fit there at Miami.
I'm gonna be honest. I was surprised when I heard about it. I mean, the Georgia camp may not have been surprised, but I was 100% surprised because he's been the starter for 2 years of a really, really good team. that's always competing for a championship of some sort. They just won a championship this year. I mean, you're going to be the guy if you decide to come back. I thought if he wasn't going to be playing for Georgia next year, it was going to be because he was on an NFL roster. I know his draft stock tanked, but he also was in the top of the SEC in passing touchdowns and passing yardage and passing or completion, not completion percentage, but passing yardage and passing touchdown, even with leading the league in drop passes that Georgia did, leading the country, I believe, in drop passes. I could be wrong on that. I know they led the SEC for sure. The talent doesn't just go away. Yeah, he might fall down the draft board, but he's probably going to go to a better team, and that might be better off for him, and he's going to shine in the NFL. He's going to play in the NFL a long time. He got a lot of hate this year. It wasn't all deserved. So I was surprised that he even entered the portal. But as soon as I heard he was entering the portal, I would have put every last dollar I had if I could have in that quick amount of time because I heard about it, and then literally like 10 hours later he committed to Miami. As soon as he hit the portal, I was like, yeah, he's going to Miami because, he's got that Cavender girlfriend down there, and they make TikToks all the time. So, he's going to go down there and be with her. Driving a Lambo, in Miami, that just fits. It doesn't really fit in Athens. It fits in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, it was reported. I don't know. I think this is accurate, and based on people said reports, I think $4 million deal, obviously for a year. So, they're saying it's the highest deal in college football history, I guess, for a year. Is what they're saying. So, or that's what his agency put out. They put out a graphic with him on it saying highest paid athlete in college football history. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, I wasn't super surprised just because I thought it made the most sense. I think with his draft stock the way it is, and it's like that's the one thing that's a really positive for players in the transfer portal. Because if he comes back a year, his draft stock's not gonna go further down than it is right now, in my opinion. So it's like, why not come back, play a year, try to get back to where you were or get it back higher while also making $4 million. I mean, and playing on a good team. Like, I mean, it's a no brainer. Honestly, I mean, I can't blame him one bit for doing
Absolutely.
it. So um, I didn't know what I thought he may stick in the draft because he did declare it first. But when I saw he entered the portal, I was like, honestly, that probably makes the most sense out of the decisions on the table for him. And yeah, like you said, once he did enter the portal, he entered with a do not contact tag. Everybody was saying Miami was going to be the landing spot, and that made the most sense based on the external factors, if you will, with a girlfriend and like I said, Lamborghini on South Beach with a girlfriend who's a model and plays basketball there. Uh, Makes sense and not a bad gig for the young man. So hopefully, wishing him a good season. But it'll be very interesting to see how he does there. Um, but I mean,
Well,
it'll be a good spot to play some weaker defenses, and he should put up some really good numbers down there.
I tell you this, he's going to throw for 4,000 yards, not 3,900 something like he did in 2023, and he's calling it 4,000. He's going to throw for 4,000 yards. He is going to carve up these ACC defenses as long as he has a little bit of protection and receivers that can catch. He is going to light it up. That doesn't mean Miami's going to win every single solitary game and win the national championship, but he is going to light it up. I'd say he throws for 4,000 yards next year, and he throws for 30 touchdowns or more.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, he's probably going to have to because that if that Miami defense was any indication this year, he's going to have to put some big numbers up
Yeah,
probably. So yeah, if you're a quarterback, it's probably a good landing spot because when your defense is giving up 30 plus a game, you better be changing the scoreboard pretty quickly. So I don't think that's a bad prediction at all. Honestly, I think that's very possible. I think he's going to do very well with the defenses in the ACC. If he gets that elbow healthy over the offseason, um, I think he's going to do really well, be able to put up a lot of big numbers down there. So be very interesting to see. You just don't see a multi-year SEC high-level starting quarterback hitting the transfer portal. That is what was surprising of it, is because it was a I don't in this particular situation, I don't think it's surprising, but I agree with you on the point. It was surprising because it's kind of an unprecedented situation. Like you don't see a multi-year Georgia starting quarterback entering the transfer portal. That's something you kind of got to get used to, and um, and I think there was a lot of rumors, even though Quinn Ewers said today he's entering the NFL draft, there was a lot of rumors that he may enter the transfer portal because he was getting a lot of big offers potentially, and he probably could have got a similar deal to Quinn Ewers if he would have stayed in college. And I honestly thought it may have made the most sense for him. Probably what I would have done if I was him, but he's deciding to go pro. But um, I
I
think
think the same thing about him as I do Carson Beck. He's going to have a long NFL career.
yeah. I think I just think it's a lot of money to leave on the table if that's what it's in fact on the table. I think it, but I mean, I don't blame him for going pro. I just think with the kind of numbers that are being thrown around, um, I don't think it ever hurts you to come back to cash in on that. And I think when you're in the spot that they're in too, I don't see any way they could really hurt themselves by coming back another year. Like I think they're, if anything, they're going to go back up. I don't think they're going to go any further than what they're at right now. So,
That's
um,
fair.
yeah, I think. But like I said, I mean, I'm sure he weighed it, and I'm sure they gauged the interest of what was out there before he decided to go pro. So, who knows? It may have made the most sense, but um, now very interesting with Carson. See how he does down there. There was a report from On3 earlier saying that Georgia contacted him in the portal wanting to get him to stay, and that Alabama also contacted. But one of the Alabama On3 reporters ended up debunking that, said that was not true. Alabama never reached out to him because he had the do not contact tag. Everybody knew he was going to Miami. So I didn't really think that made much sense. I'm sure Georgia had some discussions with him, you know, before that, probably wanting him to stay, I'm sure. But I think, I'm sure in the end, both decided like kind of to go their separate ways. And, um, we'll see going forward. But yeah, I thought it was definitely an unprecedented sort of situation that we're getting more and more of now with the portal.
Absolutely. But I think they're in perfectly fine hands with Gunnar Stockton. I think he's a dog. He's kind of what they needed back at the position, more of a mentality of Stetson Bennett, I feel like, than Carson Beck had.
I tell you what, going into next season, I mean, I Gunner is going to have the upper hand on the job. I think he's going to be in a very very good big battle with I cannot pronounce his last name, Ron Puglisi, I think is how they
Yeah,
say it.
yeah, yeah.
They said he's looked really good running the twos according to some people at Georgia. So I think it's something to watch out. Like even though Gunner he played and he does have more experience, but I think it's gonna be a big battle. Honestly, I don't think it's just gonna be like he's a shoe in for the job. I mean, obviously he's gonna get the first crack, I believe, but I think he's gonna have to battle his tail off based on what some people at Georgia have been saying. Like I think that could end up being like a really really big quarterback battle, and I wouldn't be surprised if Puglisi ended up winning it. Honestly, just kind of what people are saying, but obviously a long way to go. We got an entire off season, but um, I think it's a long ways away from saying it's for sure going to be Gunner's job. I do think they're going to have a really big battle there, and I think both guys they have a lot of confidence in. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on and see how that plays out going forward.
Absolutely. And another thing I want to touch on before we get out of here is there's a new transfer portal rule that has been voted on by the college football coaches. So all the college football coaches voted on this, and it unanimously passed. So they're going to replace. They're voted on this to replace the current two portal window with one 10-day window in January, starting in 2026. Um, Now, this has been voted on by the coaches in past, but it's got to go up the ranks all the way up to the NCAA to be officially allowed. So there's not going to be any word on this for a little while, but it did unanimously pass by the coaches, and I can't blame them because, I mean, my God, they're having to recruit the kids out of high school and they get on campus and they're recruiting them on campus. And then they're having to coach in a bowl game or, excuse me, in a rivalry game. And then they're having to recruit their players and then in a bowl game and recruit their players or potentially the playoffs and recruiting their players at the same time, along with still doing high school recruiting. I mean, these guys, it's made the job become impossible. So I know they get paid a lot to do it, but it's a bit ridiculous. But I like this rule, 10-day stretch in January. I mean, 10 days to enter your name. You don't have to sign in those 10 days, just 10 days to enter it. You don't get to hold anybody hostage anymore. Allows the coaches to understand what they have going into the off season and into the spring and things like that and going into the next season. So I think I think it's only beneficial for everyone. And I would like to get your thoughts on that as well, Cam.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I definitely think it makes more sense for the coaches, the teams. I mean, it's there's a reason they unanimously voted for this because the current portal windows are just too long and too out of hand. Because, and I think the main reason they're going to this one shorter window is just because that spring one just throws a lot of flux into things because it's like you're exiting spring or you're entering spring like not knowing who's going to be on your team at the end of spring practice. So there's just I think this makes so much more sense. You're going in to the entire offseason knowing exactly who's going to be on your team through spring, through summer. It just makes more sense, I think, for everyone involved. 10 days to enter is plenty of time. So, according to the article, it'll be from January 2nd through January 12th, which the reason it's those dates they were saying is because it lines up with the academic calendar. That way, if somebody's transferring, they have time to get signed up for the spring semester. They're starting in January. So um, that way it gives a little bit of time for that. So it's still going to be during bowl season a little bit, but I think it does kind of keep the integrity of the bowl season. Like I said, after the season, going into spring, you know exactly who's going to be on your team for the entire season. Just think that makes things so much easier on coaches, and they're not having to worry about, a 20-day window here and a 20-day window here. We're condensing it, getting our business done in a much shorter amount of time, making things easier on everyone, and just that way all teams, all coaching staffs know exactly what they have going into the next season. And right now, you just don't have any idea. I mean, you're going in the spring, your roster's not even filled out because there's going to be guys in there in the spring portal window you can grab. You're probably going to have some exits yourself. So it's just so you're having to manage your roster for like 4 and 5 months out of the year for one season. So yeah, just think it makes much more sense. And like I said, it's a reason they unanimously approve this from the coaches' side, and hopefully they'll be able to do that with a couple more approvals, which is far from a sure thing, but because the NCAA they can mess up a 2-car funeral. So let's hope. Let's hope for the coaches and team's sake they get this right, and for the players as well. I think it makes sense for all parties.
I agree 100%.
Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Um, this entire football season, we're right here at the very end. But we're going to be back covering spring, summer, all the way till next season. This is always a little bit of a sad time for us because we're getting ready to wrap up another season. But the good thing of college football, there's always a lot to talk about. So we'll be here year round. Just appreciate all your support this season. We got one more game to wrap it up on Monday night with Ohio State and Notre Dame. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll catch you back here next time. Hope y'all have a good week.
Thank you, guys.